Good morning. Good morning.
Ground Transportation wants to go first, if that's okay with you. They have a bunch of meetings. Stephen Nelson.
That's fine. Where's the resolution?
Let me get you a copy of it.
No, but I'm just saying in case anybody says what's in it.
Everything is published.
So it's on here.
Yes, everything is on here.
Let me get to it.
It's right here.
Okay.
Yeah, there it goes.
It's called order.
It's totally
So I can't vote on this. No, that's fine. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank everyone for being here on time, and for the benefit of the thousands who are watching Councilmember Harris online, we're going to call this meeting to order. We actually now have a quorum, so I'll ask Anita for roll call.
Roll call. Councilmember Green.
Present.
Councilmember Willard. Councilmember Harris. Councilmember King. Councilmember Hughes. We have 3 members. We have a quorum.
We actually do have a quorum. We do have one voting item. However, we're going to... Oh, okay. And I will move for approval of the minutes from the June 10th meeting, which was in your package earlier. Motion? Seconded. I moved, and it's been seconded by Councilmember Harris. All in favor of approval of the minutes, signify so by saying aye. Aye. All 3 of 3 yeas and no nays. We're going to go out of order a little bit. I want to thank everybody for coming, and we're going to go out of order with just one issue, because the Ground Transportation Bureau has another obligation following this meeting. So we're going to move to item 5. Before we come back to item 3, I'm going to ask Mr. Stephen Nelson, the Director of Public Works, and Delicia Creighton, Ground Transportation Bureau Administrator, to come forward representing the Department of Public Works.
Thank you all very much for the flexibility, and my apologies for the change in schedule for yourselves and everyone here. We will try to be brief and succinct while answering as many questions as humanly possible. Please, of course, feel free to interrupt at any point during this presentation. I am Steve Nelson, Director of Public Works, Deputy CAO for Infrastructure.
Good morning. I'm Delicia Creighton, Ground Transportation Bureau Administrator.
Good morning. I'm Yolanda Brownfield, Assistant Administrator, Ground Transportation Bureau.
Thank you very much. And let's make sure I can drive the presentation. So what I wanted to talk through today is around Ground Transportation Bureau, what it is a little bit that we do, the personnel that we have involved, some of our needs, and ways that we're working to reduce some wait time. So there has been change around GTB this year. Prior to May, I believe, Ground Transportation Bureau, including parking enforcement, was all under the purview of the Department of Public Works. Since May, parking enforcement and towing has moved to NOPD, but the components of GTB, the CP&C reviews, approvals, and renewals remains with the Department of Public Works for the moment. Looking at some year-to-date activity, and I want to start with thanking the ladies to my right and the limited staff that they have. They do a yeoman's effort putting together reviews, inspections, approvals, and managing this department, and they have done a lot of work, many of them under furlough, some of them recently off, but many of them under furlough for the better part of the year. Thus far, year-to-date, over 3,200 permits issued or renewed, over 2,000 driver and tour guide permits issued or renewed, a handful of special events permits that have been issued, and then 3,000 to 4,000 inspections that have been completed, as well as 71 tour guide tests taking place this year. With that said, my understanding is we have essentially worked through most of the backlog, so there should not be a significant delay in CP&C renewals at this time. If any of you receive questions, comments, or concerns about that, I would ask that anyone email gtb@nola.gov That's gtb@nola.gov, and we would be happy to look into the status of their renewal. And if there are any questions outstanding, we'd be more than happy to coordinate that. We do have some staffing shortages, as with many, if not most, departments within the city. Currently, there are 3 office staff that process, review, and approve the driver permits, tour guide permits, the company licenses across the entire for-hire industry. That includes about 3,400 drivers and 2,000 CPNCs, as well as, and that includes hundreds of school buses, which have to be inspected every 6 months. So school bus inspections in particular, that's one area. We've got around 400 school bus inspections that we have to complete at this time. Those require 3 investigators per inspection on the interior, the exterior, and inside of the building. And making sure that we're getting those inspections on a rolling basis is really important. We've heard this refrain a number of times. I do want to make sure that it's clear that if there is, if we have a need, we've got to figure out with the budget that we're working into this year and next, how do we look at increasing revenues to be able to cover the cost of additional staff, or where can we cut? At this point, my understanding is the last time that any of these fees were investigated was 2019. So there is a significant need, and this is something the CAO's office is working on, in addition to looking at fees around cemeteries. I know we're talking about sanitation, some of these things that have not been addressed in 5, 10 plus years. So that's going to be a recurring theme through our discussion as well. And with that, being able to increase staff capacity so that we can keep our backlog to a relatively reasonable time frame, and we don't have folks waiting on their renewals. We do have some vacant positions. We have a vacant office assistant, administrative support supervisor, an investigator, and 1 investigator currently unavailable. So adding to that staff, if we can fill those positions, we could certainly use 2 additional office staff and 3 additional investigators. As I alluded to before, the investigations is a key part of this, and every school bus that we investigate requires 3 investigators, and it's a 30-minute time frame. Being able to do that, putting some numbers to that, and I'll show it here, I believe on a later slide, it's about $170,000 for those 5 new positions. So if we have somewhere between 5 and 10,000 inspections, renewals, and updates, if we can update those fees 5 to 10%, that would cover the cost of the salaries. So I think that's something that we should certainly include in our look at fee updates across the city.
Councilmember Green.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. These machines are weird. Steve, do you know if the CAO's office is looking at surrounding parishes to look at parity with their fees?
That's certainly something that we'll be taking a look into is regional, what is the regional impact? The other thing that you mentioned that I wanted to talk about as well, I know there have been some requests for new licenses. What we're talking about is renewals. We do want to be a little bit careful in terms of the number of new licenses that we issue so that we're not saturating the market. My understanding is that in the past, there's been market studies that are completed. We did issue 150 new limousine licenses this year, but before we go and open things up too much, we want to be sure that we're not imperiling those who already have a license. So in addition to looking at other parishes, we do also need to look at our market and how many do we have.
Thank
How
you.
many of those licenses? Yes, good question. Thank you. All right, current impact, we have 15 total staff. 8 of those, around half of those are furloughed. Those that are related to CP&C renewals are not currently under furlough. We really only have about 3 of those staff that are reviewing CP&C. So again, making sure to give a shout out to Miss Yolanda and her staff. They're doing a lot of work, 7,000 inspections and renewals completed this year to date. Again, that recommended solution of looking at the fee structure, updating things from 2019 to present, looking at surrounding parishes, and making sure that we all understand the impact of furloughs, and being able to get past the budget issues that we have and get off of furlough is important. One other thing that we want to look at, and actually we have had bond funding for a project, is a centralized work location. Right now, we've got inspections in one location. We have some staff that are on the 6th floor of City Hall. There is currently a building, the former brake tag station on Old Gentilly Road in New Orleans East. The building is ready for build out. There was bond funding, there is a bond funded project. We have had to delay that project as a result of needing some of those bond funds on the front end. I think we've talked about that at length. So the longest we would have to wait would be 2028. I know we would rather do that this year, but that will be our next bond sale. If we have savings in the meantime, we can certainly look into that. But this is another area, along with additional staff, where I believe that we can increase efficiency and effectiveness in terms of turning around those CPNC renewals. This is a brief flow chart of how a CPNC is issued. Applicant submits their documents electronically, and this may be one of the issues if you all are getting individual questions about required information that needs to get followed up on. So again, if folks have a question, if there are individual CPNC holders or those seeking those, please email gtb@nola.gov, and one of these two ladies or their staff will respond to those questions. And if you have them, please reach out directly. The staff searches multiple emails, they locate the matching documents, and there can be additional administrative workload and some processing delays. Again, those additional staff that we talked about with $170,000, 5 new positions, with the number of permits and renewals that we have issued, I think some modest adjustments in those fees would be warranted that could allow us to increase staffing and get us to a place where we can turn those requests around sooner. So again, summarizing this, the recommended solutions, it's not to beat a drum too many times, but reviewing a fee structure, adjusting accordingly will allow us to look at increasing staffing capacity, filling those 2 office and 3 investigator positions, as well as the furloughs. We're going to get off furloughs here as soon as humanly possible. The mayor's talked about it. None of us like it. None of us wants it. It's a tough place to be in. We are working to get through this year. But getting folks off of furlough is, of course, going to be important. Consolidating to a single centralized GTB, Ground Transportation Bureau location, will be important. And then ensuring that applicants are getting their documentation in place. Again, this is kind of where having one place to go will help our customers in this instance be more readily able to get through any questions that may come up. And then again, being able to process those inspections, getting those inspectors on board is going to help us with the school buses in particular. So that is the total of my presentation. At this point, I would be happy to take any questions, comments, or concerns.
Thank you, members. I want to ask a couple of questions first, and then I'll ask if you have questions. Steve, I'd like you to talk about the numbers in this respect. Pretty direct questions. I don't think the public understands, and they don't have a real reason to understand how many bus inspections we do as a city, and why do we do so many, and why are they done so often, so that the public knows. For example, you said there are almost 400 inspections outstanding. Is
Yes,
that correct?
currently there's around 400. What is the total number of school buses in the fleet that we review?
Total number of school buses, not school buses, 557, right at 600 total school buses.
So there are 600 school buses that operate in the city of New Orleans, delivering young people to schools, and we as a city inspect them all so often because why?
twice a year to ensure that that the vehicles are.
It's a DOT
It's a
requirement.
DOT requirement.
Right, state, I'm okay with whoever is requiring. I just want the public to know.
Right.
State Department of Transportation and Development requires the city of New Orleans to conduct inspections of those buses, and maybe it wouldn't have to be the city of New Orleans, but the city of New Orleans does it. Because it's something that we're concerned about because we want safety on our streets. Now, we do them every 6 months because, is that the law?
DOT.
No, just look, I'm feeding you questions that I want the public to
Yes.
understand. So we haven't decided on our own that we want to do inspections every 6 months if people think it's unnecessary. It's for the safety of the children.
That's right.
And on this respect, I applaud the state, whom I'm very critical of, for wanting to have those inspections done. So at the end of the day, those inspections have to be done. But it's not just those inspections have to be done. 3 people have to conduct those inspections. Can you describe that process, where it takes place, and how you can possibly get 400 inspections done in the near future with having to have 3 people under the bus?
One inspector is actually underneath the bus.
Okay.
We're all certified to do the bus inspections. And one is underneath the bus, checking the tires and everything. The other investigator is on the outside perimeters of the bus, making sure the lights work, listening to the horn, the signals, checking all the outside perimeters of the bus, that the stop sign goes out properly and all. And the third investigator is inside the bus, making sure the seats are attached and everything, a fire extinguisher is inside of the bus, and everything that's required for that bus to operate is function inside that bus for the kids to get on safely.
You're at almost every one of those inspections, right?
Yes, for the most part.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, look, I'm feeding you the positive sides because I want people to know. People just don't see everything that happens in the city of New Orleans. To conduct 550 inspections per year with 3 people having to be required twice a year is just a tremendous effort. And Steve, you used the word yeoman's and yeowoman's efforts. Tremendous job, and I think that the city needs to be applauded for conducting, at the request and the requirement of the State Department of Transportation and Development, so many inspections. But I also say this because I want people to feel comfortable that we have this backlog, and once we get through this backlog, we're not ignoring things. If you see something that they think that we need to know, like a bus light isn't working, GTB?
Yes, please email gtb@nola.gov. Take notes on the bus itself if they can.
Right.
And we would be very interested to find that out and make sure that the correct action is taken.
Yeah, and it's important to know that the bus driver may not necessarily know. We need the public's help. Certainly let us know about instances that you see where there are particular concerns. I just have a couple of notes, and then I'm going to go down the line. Actually, that was the most important thing that I wanted to emphasize, was that the public should be aware. 7,000 inspections and renewals. Can you talk about that? How do you conduct 7,000 inspections in a year? 1,000 inspections a month so far?
Well, not necessarily 1,000 inspections.
And renewals.
That's permit
And
renewals,
renewals, right.
inspections. It's through a lot of hard work and dedication, and these 2 ladies and the teams that they lead are working, and again, many of those on furlough, working very hard and very diligently to make sure that we keep up with the backlog and stay current as much as possible.
Right. And for the public's benefit, because we don't talk about it enough, we use the word furlough. That means that once every pay period, at least 1 day of pay is taken off. So that's basically 10% less salary and 10% less in terms of employees coming in, because I don't expect anybody to come in and volunteer. Right. We have responsibilities and the like. So at the end of the day, our furlough system is something that's regrettable, but it's not just that, it's people, it's important to recognize that it's people. It's not just the dollars sometimes, it's people. Right. They're doing jobs that need to be done. And so when you hear about backlogs in certain areas, or you hear about maybe the grass not getting cut the way it used to be getting cut, it's because furloughs are real in the city of New Orleans. And we need to do everything that we can, and I know that we're working on it, to remove those furloughs and get people back to work, that 10% that we're missing in terms of employee time and numbers.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions?
Just to follow up on the fee situation, do we have a timeline for when we might expect to see the increased fee?
I know the CAO is working on that for this year. Obviously, if this or any other set of fees or adjustments rises to the level that it needs some separate attention, we're happy to take a look at that.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think we need to look at every means of increasing fees, especially since this one has not been increased since 2019.
I think that's a key factor. If inflation affects all of us,
right,
and if we can build things in like a CPI adjustment, that I think.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Stu. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have 6 cards for questions. I want to remind everyone that there's a 2-minute time period during which you can speak at this time. And if you have questions, certainly direct the questions to the appropriate person. I'm calling these in order received. Even Alford. 2 minutes each, folks.
Hi, good morning. My name is Evan Alford, and my address is 1025 Bienville Street, and I own Need a Ride pedicabs. Since 2011, we and the other licensed companies have invested countless hours and sweat equity into building a professional pedicab industry that now supports more than 250 jobs in the city. There are currently 45 licensed pedicabs between the 3 companies, and you really only see all 45 working on the big weekends and major events like Saints games, concerts, Mardi Gras, and Jazz Fest. Our drivers work all year for those opportunities and depend on those big events to make good money. But now when those events come around, our drivers show up to a completely flooded market with illegal golf carts, taxis, and unlicensed pedicabs. In some cases, the number of vehicles for hire doubles overnight. That is not sustainable and it's not safe. It oversaturates a small niche market that we worked very hard to build. It adds dozens of unregulated slow-moving vehicles to already congested streets and directly threatens more than 250 legitimate jobs. Our drivers and companies have spent years following the rules and investing in the industry. We've made it through the pandemic, road closures and construction, rideshare platforms entering the market, slow summers, and countless other challenges while continuing to do the things the right way. It is incredibly unfair to then have bad actors show up for the most profitable events, take business and income directly from licensed drivers, and operate with virtually no consequences. We are asking the city to enforce the laws already on the books and protect the legitimate jobs, livelihoods, and small businesses that have played by the rules. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Councilmember Green, can I ask Director Nelson a question on the issue of illegal golf carts? And I don't know if Buddy's here yet or not, but there are tons of golf carts on the streets. I see babies that are not tied down. I see toddlers that are not strapped in. And you know the condition of our streets. You know how we drive here in New Orleans. And I think a lot of people think that because they can get a license at the DMV, a tag, that they're legal here in New Orleans. So what is the state of golf carts on the streets of New Orleans?
Yeah, I know Mr. Alford's comments are well made, and one of the things that we were talking, I mentioned very briefly, was the need for a market study. If we're going to increase even legitimate licenses, we do need a market study to make sure that we're not flooding the market and adversely impacting those who are playing by the rules and doing what they are supposed to be doing. I cannot speak to the number of enforcement actions on golf carts specifically, as NOPD handles that, but I do know that they are ramping up their enforcement, and they've really been looking at traffic violations much more closely this year and going forward. So I think that certainly needs to remain or be a point of focus for us so that we're not adversely affecting the employers that are already there.
I do think that this Councilmember Green deserves some sort of communication, social media, PSA that golf carts are not allowed on the streets of New Orleans. I don't know if that's something that ground transportation can do in connection with NOPD, but I think, again, because people are getting license plates from the DMV, that they think that they're street legal here, and that's absolutely not the case.
That's a fine suggestion, because a lot of this is sometimes misinformation, and I'll work with you and the committee. But Mr. Nelson, let's talk about that in terms of what we can do to enhance maybe a flyer that makes it clear that a golf cart at all times is not allowable for hire transactions.
Definitely.
You all think about the way we do it, and let's start doing it soon, because we're waiting on that inevitable accident that's going to happen with a golf cart going on these streets, especially as they are throughout the French Quarter and other areas. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councilmember Harris, for that suggestion, and also for Mr. Alford for your comments. Tree, Ground Transportation Bureau. I'm telling you, that's what it is.
Yes, thank you. My name is Tree, and I live at 3436 Annunciation Street.
Okay.
I don't know what y'all may decide to do about the illegal golf carts and rogue pedicabs that are growing in number and tenaciousness, but please consider the following as y'all go about it. There is now advertisements on social media by a company that is aiming to hire dump truck, pedicab, and golf cart drivers that does not possess a CPNC number, which is illegal. If hired, these operators will not have passed the written exam required by the GTB for a pedicab operator's permit, nor passed a physical, nor a drug test, nor a criminal background check or any of the steps that we have in place, have been in place and enforced for taxi cab operators, limousine drivers, mule-drawn carriages, pedicab, and tour bus operators, and I'm assuming probably the RTA as well. And the same goes for the growing golf carts. Not only are they accountable to no one, displaying all manner of advertisements that we are not allowed to do, they are also uninsured and operating with impunity on city streets. They have grown bold enough to get in the same queues formed by those of us who are playing by and are subject to the rules. In conclusion, our entire pedicab industry had to work through a 10-year probationary period before we were ultimately validated. That's how concerned the city was at one time over pedicabs. And now these usurpers simply run ad hoc and roughshod over all those concerns. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for your comments, Tree. P.J. Lynch.
My name is PJ Lynch. I live at 6320 Delord Street, and I'm going to pile on in the abundance of illegal golf carts and pedicabs really hurt the industry. But I've been a pedicabber since 2011, and now I'm a manager of the Yellow Company that has advertisements using our pedicabs, but is not for our company. That's super frustrating to us. The other thing is, like, from a management perspective, when we have someone who's a bad actor within our own companies, we are the first step at regulation on our own drivers. So if we suspend or if we fire someone, they immediately just go get their own pedicab, go out into the street. So then we have no teeth to enforce things with our own company, and people just leave us as soon as they get fired for good reasons, and then they just go start pedicabbing. It sets a terrible morale across all pedicabbers because there's no enforcement. Secondly, the licensing process, for which, Yolanda, I appreciate you so much, and I know your job is super difficult. It takes, from the moment that we submit something to the moment a license gets approved by the city, it's almost 4 weeks right now. Back in 2011 and 2018, we used to submit things in person. It would go through one review. It got approved on the spot. That person could start working within 2 days of being hired. From the moment I hire, they then have to go get a drug test, a notary, all these things. You're talking about 6 weeks. So the amount of people that we used to hire who could then be transitioned into the job used to be around 80%. Now it's below 50%. You can't hire someone and then expect them to wait around 5 to 6 weeks before they do the first day on the job. Baton Rouge has a pedicab licensing. It costs $20. It takes 20 minutes. You get a federal background check. It's like something that we should look at is what other cities close to us are doing to make things be more efficient and quicker. Thanks.
Do you wish to comment?
No, I think that's a good suggestion.
Okay.
Certainly something we can look at it in addition to the fees. What are the processes that others follow?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for those comments, Mr. Lynch. Timothy Huft. It's going to be Timothy Huft, Rob Lynch, Solomon Exieber, and Jason Coleman in that order, if you want to be prepared. This is Timothy Huft.
Just piling on here, yes, the rogue pedicab and golf carts are a big problem. We are all making much less money now. With regards to a market study, please do conduct one. I think you'll see we don't need more congestion, especially within the downtown area in the French Quarter. I had an interesting conversation with the very person who posted the social media job opportunity for dump truck drivers because he has a dump truck, and allowed his insurance, he says, allowed him to put a bunch of golf carts to work. He even told me he hit an old woman on the street who was not a passenger. I said, what about the passengers? He didn't have one at the time. It's only a matter of time before this happens. I mean, are we going to wait until something serious happens, until life is, seriously injured or lost? That's all I have to say. Everybody else has spoken so much more clearly about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Huff, for your comments. And you don't have to be defensive about piling on. We have an opportunity to hear from members of the public on an issue that's extremely important to us all. As I mentioned, Mr. Lynch.
My name is Rob Lynch. I own Bike Taxi Unlimited at 631 Elysian Fields Avenue. Right now, it takes weeks for a legitimate driver to obtain a city permit. The bottleneck makes it incredibly difficult to hire. High-quality applicants walk away. Please keep in mind there are 2 application reviews per driver. One happens quickly and the second can take weeks. so maybe we could just have one review. Also, illegal operators are thriving. Unlicensed pedicabs and golf carts are running driver-for-hire services, actively recruiting on Facebook and Instagram. They operate without license plates, background checks, or commercial insurance, hiding behind the false pretense of offering free rides for tips. Furthermore, the rogue pedicabs are operating with electric motors that exceed 750 watts. I know you guys are going to talk about electric motors. You will find that over 750 watts violates the maximum wattage allowed for electric assist vehicles by the state of Louisiana. That is equal to 1 horsepower. 1 horsepower motor for a scooter will allow the scooter to go 40 miles an hour. Legitimate companies like mine remain human-powered. Licensed companies pay fees, expensive insurance, and vet staff. Let's remember that a CP&C stands for Certificate of Public Necessity and Convenience. We need to be regulating public necessity by protecting the public from nuisances, safety hazards, and illegal activities. I recommend not expanding CP&Cs until we can enforce baseline laws against illegal operators. On April 1st, 2025, there was a Public Works Committee meeting talking about deputizing GTB officers per Chapter 90 of the ordinance. Nothing came of this. Charge us more to add enforcements against illegal operators and help us mitigate and help us hire legitimate drivers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Solomon E.
Good morning. My name is Solomon Xavier. I live at 31 Eugenie Court in Algiers. I've been a resident of New Orleans for 30 years and a driver for over 25 years. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I was going to complain about the renewal process, but after I heard the explanation, I see what load they have. And in the last few weeks when we called, we've been getting a nice treatment explanation explaining to us why it's taking so long. So I pray that it gets better, but one recommendation I have is maybe the paperwork process. We submit too many paperworks. Over year and year, the same documents. Some of them don't need really to be renewed. If they can be stored in a safe disk or something, they don't even have to be reviewed. So that might help the city and the drivers. But while I'm at it, the director pointed out they issued 150 CP&C for limousine, and I'm asking for Mr. Eugene and the mayor. The market is saturated. The main reason it's saturated, everybody is concentrated in one area. Those limousine licenses, they're not only doing limousine, they're doing Uber Black, which is a limousine stage for black cars. Uber has limited the restricted area. We can't pick up uptown anymore. We can't pick up a Lakeview anymore. I can't pick up in Algiers anymore. They restricted us in CBD and the airport only. But they stood here in front of you, in front of the city council in 2014, promised everything. Now they broke their promise. We're keeping our bargain. We keep in expensive insurance. We're renewing CPNs.
Well, that's your time, but I appreciate your comments. I'm hearing that it's been a number of years since certain things have been addressed. So to the extent that we can, we don't always necessarily have to have a meeting, but let's look at some of those policies that have existed for, in some instances, 15 years. They don't have to necessarily be changed because these are public opinions that are being expressed now. But let's look at them and see what we can do and work as a committee and a council to address some of those issues. All right, Jason Coleman.
Jason Coleman, 600 Jackson Avenue, New Orleans, Louisiana, 70130. I'm gonna keep it short, 5 things. Does this administration give due cause hearings within the calendar year of an application or until it expires? Just going off of cases that we've had with the hearings, not having a hearing, and then having a hearing after the year has already passed. So therefore, even if you win your hearing, it's called double jeopardy. When they charge you for the year, you didn't even use the CP&C, or they fine you for the days that you missed inspection after being denied inspection. Secondly, does the administration plan to meet with the stakeholders, and who is the advisor of GTB when it comes to policies, procedure, and expertise? Because administration is one thing of paperwork, but when you're trying to manage the ecosystem of transportation and you put out 150 limos in a poor city, they have to do work on Uber X, Uber Black, or taxi cab rates, which then make everybody else collapse down till somebody's going to go out. And we need to keep the ecosystem running in transportation, and currently we don't have that balance system. Illegal operators has been talked about. They are parking on sidewalks. They're in front of Harris Casino, Brightest Day, and it's soliciting. 3 different violations. Well, who's going to enforce it? We need to know what the plan is, how the enforcement is going to be. And this is not a new thing. This has been around for 10 years, and I'm not blaming the administration, but when you sign up and you say you know what to do and you're going to get it done, then we expect some type of result. Last but not least, at the end of the day, we have to look at transparency. When you do a public request, it is not filled. And I've since you're all.
Thank you for your comments. I want to encourage you and others to assume that there is something that you want us to know that we don't know, and to put in writing some specific suggestions, because they will be considered. If you're someone who's experiencing the industry and you've seen things go on for a while, these folks who are sitting at this table are very open. And I will encourage you to use the methods of either working through my office, certainly, or sending an email in, but you now have before you the 3 folks who are under this administration are going to work with us to make any changes that are necessary to get things done. So I want to encourage you to put in writing some of your concerns, make no assumptions relative to whether or not we're going to get certain things done, but if we don't know about them, we don't get them done. So, all righty, and Bashara Nim.
Good morning. My name is Bashar Anemi, resident of 5501 Dana Court, New Orleans. I want to touch base what these 2 gentlemen just said about the CP&C. First of all, I want to thank Yolanda and her team. I know they're overwhelmed. I know the renewal process is going to take a little bit longer. My issue here is this cost me background check, federal, local, to get it, to drive people around to make sure that they're safe. And that's what I'm proud of carrying. And what I remember when I took my CP&C, I was told CP&C is a privilege, not a right. I mean, it's a right, not a privilege. I mean, a privilege, sorry, I'm confused here. It's a privilege, not a right, okay? What that means is you gotta be proud when you have a CP&C. You gotta be proud when you're driving in Orleans Parish, not just Poydras, not just French Quarter, is Orleans Parish. I belong to Orleans Parish. I don't belong in Poydras. I don't belong in just one street over. If I go to Garden District right now, I am not allowed to pick up customers who I drove from Four Seasons to Commander Palace in my Cadillac. And when they get to Commander Palace, somebody's gonna pick them up. Not having a CP&C, no documents, with Uber, that can be living in Shreveport, Louisiana. They can come over here and they can take our business. We are really, really hurt. And I'm talking about the 100 drivers that they have insurance. Our insurance costs about $1,200 a month. We have $1 million policy. What Uber did is they switched that and they gave you a premier model. The premier model, which is you can go all over state of Louisiana and you can be a premier. With no background check, no federal, you don't have to have this ID. So if you're telling me that you
I'm going to ask you to speak to him for a second afterwards. I'm not really familiar with what he's saying in terms of why you can't pick some up in the Garden District specifically, and I'm not necessarily sure. I mean, we got to be accurate, you know, maybe. I don't want to belabor this point, but I'm going to ask you to have a conversation. You're telling me that you could drive from the Four Seasons and go into the Garden District and there's something specific to the Garden District? Is that a fact? I don't want us to have information. What is it based on? I'm sorry, members of the council, I don't usually do this, but we have to defer in the interest of correct information. Can you come back for just a second to the microphone? I need you to be very specific as to what happens that you can't pick someone up in.
5 months ago, Uber, for the past 10 years, okay? When I took my CPNC, I remember 7 years ago when I took my CPNC, you have to have a CPNC to drive Uber Black and Uber Black SUV in Orleans Parish, okay? For years, it's been the case, for years. No one is allowed to do that except us. For the past 5 months, what Uber did, they changed the model. They include the Premier, and they took the Uber Black and Uber Black SUV. The minute you cross that bridge, you go into the Lower Garden District, your Uber do not work. Uber Black does not work anymore. So you go all the way to Uptown, you go to Algiers, you go all the way to East Orleans. We cannot pick up Uber Black and Uber Black SUV anymore. But if you live in Shreveport, Louisiana, and you have an Uber app, your Premier will work. You can come over here, which is flooding the market. We see people driving from Baton Rouge, driving from Covington. I have a customer of mine telling me why I'm not being picked up by Cadillac. You know, my daughter just sent me this regular plate guy that's picking her up. He told her to get off.
Yeah, but you're not representing Uber.
No, I'm not. I'm a limo driver.
Limousine.
I'm a limo driver.
Oh, I thought you were saying something about your company couldn't pick someone up in the Garden District. That's an Uber issue. That's not a city issue. I mean, look, we're here as a city council. If Uber has decided that internally, then you need to address it with Uber. But there's nothing that stops someone who has a CPNC license in the city of New Orleans from going to from the Four Seasons to pick someone up in the Garden District.
No, I understand that.
But you misled in your commentary. You're suggesting, you're talking about Uber. That's an internal issue. That's all I want to say.
Councilman Green, can I say something? One of my team members is going to come down and talk to you. I know people who represent Uber at the state level, so we'll try to get some information on this. All right? Thank you.
All right, but there's nothing on the books that stops someone from a CPNC license from picking. I'm asking the folks who are at this table so that the public understands, right?
No, there's nothing.
Okay, nothing. All right, it's important for us to be on the public side versus the private side and other limitations. So thank you very much for your presentation, members. Any comments? Okay. I see you all smiling. Everything was okay? Am I right? There's nothing that stops someone from picking up someone, because I don't want that to be misinformation. We have hundreds of licensed drivers out there. I don't want them to think that the Garden District is off limits to them. That's all.
Chairman,
Right.
it sounds like it is an issue with Uber, so we're going to reach out to Uber and see what the problem is and see if we can get a resolution.
That's fine. Information is extremely important at these meetings. Thank you very much for your presentation. I appreciate it. And I know that we need to address issues of furlough and work, but based on those numbers that we heard today, thank you for the work that you do. It's very important, and let me know how we can help as a committee, as a council, to make things a little bit flow a little bit more smoothly, because this is all about safety.
Yes.
Yes.
At the end of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much again for taking us out of order, and thank you to these ladies for the work they do.
All righty. We're going to go back to our order, which is item number 3, which is discussion and a vote on a resolution that council members have, but this is regarding the Opportunity Pass program, and we have representatives of Ride New Orleans and the youth, well, Ride New Orleans for the most part.
I think you have to use the clicker. Yeah, if you don't mind tilting it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good morning, council members.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for allowing us to present today. My name is Courtney Jackson. I'm the Executive Director of Ride New Orleans.
My name is Bob Danton. I'm the Policy Manager with Ride New Orleans.
And I'm Sierra Gaines. I'm a Youth Transit Ambassador at Ride New Orleans.
So today we're going to be talking to you guys about something you already know, but for the audience, just going to do a quick overview. So the Opportunity Pass pilot program is free transit for Orleans Parish youth between the ages of 16 to 24 on all regional transit authority bus, streetcars, and ferries. Through outreach and our collaboration with our friends at the Children and Youth Planning Board, Ride New Orleans was able to hear what young people needed for public transportation. And ultimately what we heard was they need more than just reliability and a bus that comes on time and frequently, but also free public transportation, which in 2023 pushed Ride New Orleans to do a data paper, a zero fares data paper that ultimately we brought to City Council, presented to you, and thankfully you all agreed it was an important issue, and we were able to get $2.5 million of American Rescue Plan funding for the pilot program, a one-time fund. We launched the Opportunity Pass in September of 2024, and we've been going strong ever since. So one of the biggest questions folks have about why free public transportation and why it's important, and the biggest thing we came to hear was that it's how we keep young people here in New Orleans, it's how we build the workforce, how we strengthen our economy, and how we prepare our next generation of civic leaders here for here in New Orleans, because opportunity is ultimately the answer, but access to said opportunity is absolutely vital.
Alongside being a youth transit ambassador, I'm employed with 3 other youth serving organizations. I'm also a native young person to New Orleans, and I use the Opportunity Pass myself. I will be doing myself, the young people I work with, the more than 11,500 young people who signed up for the Opportunity Pass, a true disservice if I didn't sit up here and tell y'all what I bore witness to and the experiences that those young people have. I first do want to thank you, the City Council Transportation Committee, for supporting the program and our work with a resolution. We have young people who live, and we have a young person who lives in the East right now who has found her career field job across the city, and she literally has to use transit to get home and to the opportunity every evening. And we also have young people whose schools don't have enough funding to provide transit home after school programs. Transit is what allows them to stay, participate, and enjoy experience outside of their home. We also have youth who stay right here in New Orleans and attend college, but can't afford to live on campus. Every day they depend on transit to get to and from schools. And these aren't short trips, y'all. These are like West Bank to Lakeview, Mizzou to Garden District, Hollywood to Gentilly. Young people live, learn, work, experience joy, and have families throughout this entire city. Sometimes the only thing standing between them and opportunity, or even their community and their families, is being able to get there. There are over 40,000 young people ages 16 to 24 who live in Orleans Parish alone. That means we're talking about tens of thousands of young people who need to get to school, work, healthcare, and opportunities across this whole city. So when we talk about free transit, we're not just talking about a bus ride. We're talking about access to independence. We're talking about connection. We're talking about young people who really fully want to experience the city that they call home. I sit here as a youth and as someone who works alongside these youth, and I ask us to make sure that we make sure that transportation is not a barrier standing between them and where they need to go. Our young people already know how they want to get there. We just need to make the way. Thank y'all for supporting the dreams and goals of New Orleans Futures.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Good.
As Sierra said, the transportation needs of our youth exist all across the city. This is a little bit of the data that we've learned from our pilot program so far. When you look at where youth are enrolled in the program, they come from every council district, every zip code across the city. Some of the areas with the highest numbers of enrollments are the upper and lower 9th Ward, St. Roch, Holly Grove, Mid-City, and parts of Uptown, including the University area. I think it's also really important to look at where youth are relying on the pass the most. This is the areas where the youth activate their pass the most per person. And when you look at that number, you see that parts of New Orleans East, Desire, Gentilly Woods, Algiers, St. Thomas area, and the Lower Garden District are some of the areas where youth are really relying on that pass every day. Some of our demographic information that we've learned so far from the pilot, upon enrollment, just over half, 55% of the youth who enroll identify as daily transit riders and 75% as either daily or weekly riders. About 2/3 of the youth who are enrolled in the program are enrolled in either college or university or in high school. About 1 in 5 of the youth who are enrolled are not currently enrolled in school. That represents young people who are either in our workforce full-time or some young people that are disconnected both from education and workforce opportunities. And then we have about 6% that are in career or technical training. When you look at the race and ethnicity of our applicants or enrollees, about 62% are Black or African American, about 17% are white, and about 8% are Hispanic or Latino. When we look at the usage, the Opportunity Pass for most users is a digital pass that's good for 24 hours. So this represents the time in which they activate that pass. We can see that there's substantially higher usage during the Monday through Friday work week, which represents a high usage for school and work commutes, but also a high rate of usage on the weekends, which again could represent those hospitality jobs or using it for joy, for access to their community, and other opportunities that exist outside of the normal work week. When we look at the times of day that they activate, we see again a huge peak in the early morning at 5 and 6 a.m. This is young folks getting ready to use that pass for their whole day to go to work or to school and then come back later. We also do see another peak in the early afternoon, and that really aligns with data that we've seen in our hospitality outreach. That really represents a lot of folks that are going to the second shift hospitality jobs, those 2 to 11 p.m. shifts, as well as youth that may have had a ride to school or to job in the morning and then are using it to get home or to get where they need to go to make chores, etc. after that.
So one of the things we want to just highlight is that the Opportunity Pass strengthens the entire community. And, you know, it builds confidence, those soft skills you need, being able to ride public transportation. It fosters economic mobility. It supports a healthy, robust economy. It supports families in reducing the transportation costs that they have, and it increases ridership amongst the RTA and other transit agencies, which is huge. We want to build that ridership. And it generates valuable data that not only we use, but that we pass along to transit agencies or our partner organizations that serve the youth that we've been serving with the Opportunity Pass. Ultimately, we are learning that this pilot worked because access is opportunity, but the youth are telling us that it's working. We know that funding ends at the end of the year. It is ARPA funding, so we do need to spend that down by December of 2026. And we also understand that with the city's current budget, it behooves us for Ride New Orleans to go ahead and take on that responsibility until we find ourselves in a better place fiscally. That being said, having this resolution is going to open doors for us that we normally wouldn't have access to. Having the support from the city means not only so much for us as we go to these folks who have dollars to support this, but also it shows the youth that you're willing to invest in them until the time comes when financially investment can maybe be offered by the city of New Orleans. In speaking on investing, we've looked at the numbers, and what we come to understand is it's an estimated $850,000 to run this program, which includes administrative costs. But those investments, again, you're looking at investments in youth that we are seeing the results of. Now, I know this number is a little bit bigger than what we presented to you guys, but that is actually because when we announced that we were stopping enrollments, an influx of, I believe, almost 1,000 youth went to sign up for this program. So not only was it great to see, but it also meant that it needs more financial backing. So again, $850,000 a year to run this, which includes administrative costs. Just going to reiterate again, the Opportunity Pass has literally changed the lives of thousands of youth. And we can say that because we've held focus groups, we've been in the community, we have youth ambassadors that work for us, so that we know that Paper to Pavement and how this has affected them is absolutely vital to their growth and their success. I just want to end this. This is our favorite quote. We were working with a youth, and the youth said, "I have a lot of dreams, and I need a way to get to those dreams." And that really resonated with us. And we wanted to make sure that you saw that this is so important to youth, and they have dreams and they want to get to them, and public transportation offers that. We want to, of course, thank our partners at the Regional Transit Authority, obviously our partners at the City of New Orleans, our friends at the Children and Youth Planning Board for making sure that this was youth-centered and inviting us to participate and work with youth, and of course our friends at the New Orleans Public Library who made it accessible for folks to get the pass. We're very grateful to have their partnership. If anybody has any questions, including our friends in the audience, there's a QR code that shows all of the data we shared today. Anybody in the audience who maybe wants to connect us with people who may be interested in investing, we just want to make sure that folks know we're out there. And hopefully with the support of the city with the resolution, those doors will open to us so we can ensure we find funding for this program.
Thank you, Courtney, Bob, and Sierra for those great words and for that presentation. Before we move on to public comment, members of the council, do you have any questions or comments? All is good? Okay, at this time, we'll go with the cards that we have for comments, and then we'll discuss and vote on the proposed resolution. Lola Raymond, it'll be Tim Spahn Sadler afterwards, Lauren Nagel, and Miss Scanlon, and then I hear one more card, or at least two more coming in. So Lola Raynard.
Good morning, Council. My name is Lola, and I was one of the first RIDE youth ambassadors to work on the Opportunity Pass programming. I also used the Opportunity Pass 5 to 7 days a week. I've seen the program grow from 0 to over 10,000 sign-ups, and I have witnessed firsthand how it has benefited the youth of New Orleans. Not only has the program benefited the local youth, it's also youth-led. My fellow youth ambassadors and I have developed transit literacy content to teach others how to navigate our transit system. Additionally, we all had a hand in Opportunity Pass branding and social media to engage the community. We listened closely to feedback from users, so the program has been truly shaped by the over 10,000 16 to 24-year-olds enrolled in the program. The Opportunity Pass has opened doors for many youth entering and keeping up in the workforce. A large portion of Pass users are young people in the workforce, whether it be an after school job or their everyday life. It's been proven that the Opportunity Pass allows access to what's important. We are the future of New Orleans, and we deserve the ability to reach our next opportunity. Having free transit gave me the chance to show my employer I can be a reliable employee, and I worked my way to a full-time position. Without the Opportunity Pass, I would not have been able to put in the work to make it to where I am now. Having continued access to free transit would mean more opportunity for young people to experience life without the barrier of transportation. At RIDE, we say 0 fares takes you anywhere, and it really can.
Thank you, Ms. Raynard. I appreciate your comments and your being present today. Tim Sadler.
Good morning, Tim Spahn Sattler, 2506 Broadway Street. I am here on behalf of the NET High Schools and Alternatives for Educators for Quality Alternatives. We provide the alternative education for our city, and it is so essential to have this benefit for our young people. Students come to our school anytime between 8:10, 9:30, 11:30, and 1:30. So there's all these different times, so traditional buses don't work. Additionally, being able to have training on using public transportation while they're still in school allows them to be able to take advantage of these opportunities that you've heard these youth ambassadors talk about. So just since the school year has started, I've taken a 17-year-old mother of a 3-month-old who is coming from out of town, has never been in a place that has public transportation. I helped her take the bus for the first time. We have a student who is going over to Xavier University for dual enrollment who's never taken the bus. I took the bus with her. And later today, I'll be on my way to the West Bank, where we'll be taking 2 buses in order to get a student over to the New Orleans Career Center, where he can pursue a degree in welding. From the school perspective, it is really essential for us because having reliable transportation through the RTA Opportunity Pass allows students to come to school. Attendance drops because otherwise we have to give them 1-day passes in order to try and bridge the gap. And so before the Opportunity Pass program went into place, we were looking at about $160 per year per student per year in one-day RTA passes. With this program, that number dropped down to about $71 per student, and it would be even more in the coming years if we had the issue was that a lot of them didn't have reliable cell phones and devices. So being able to extend this program is such a benefit not only to schools, but to all of our alumni who lose that wraparound support upon graduation.
Thank you, Tim. We appreciate that. I'll also add thank you for the work that the net high schools do in our city. Doesn't get a lot of recognition, but I have a chance to visit the net charter school, and the programs are important, and the people that they serve are extremely important and underrepresented in terms of what people know about them. So thank you for that. Lauren Nagel. You're in support? Okay, thank you. And Lauren is with Bike Easy. Caitlin?
Her comment is for number 4.
Oh. Okay, thank you. Caitlin Scanlon.
Good morning, council members. My name is Caitlin Scanlon. I'm the Chief Development Officer at Cafe Reconcile, which is our restaurant, and our workforce training provider, which is Reconcile New Orleans. We offer workforce training for young people 16 to 24 in the city, and we've been active partners with Ride New Orleans throughout the Opportunity Youth Pass. We wanted to be here today to offer our public support for the resolution. As the net has already articulated, young people in the city rely upon the Opportunity Youth Pass for access to programs, both school and workforce, many of which we are connecting and providing throughout the city. In a year, Reconcile will work with 110 young people. We also then work with an additional 200 alumni. Those young people come to us as new entrants into the workforce, and they're currently disconnected from education and workforce. We're putting them on pathway to be in their career exploration journey, but then the goal is to have them connected to a pathway. Using the Opportunity Youth Pass, you now make more jobs and more opportunity or continuing credentialing and education accessible to them. In 2025, Reconcile connected to 82 partners across, 82 connections in 25 partnerships. Those are both for personal well-being as well as workforce opportunities. And then there's also the budget implication, where those choices of transportation or direct service provisions that we have to make every day within our budget costs are also directly impacted by the Opportunity Youth Pass. At a time when organizations are facing everyday changing funding streams about what is covered, what is not covered within our government contracts, or what our philanthropy partners are able to provide, the Opportunity Youth Pass creates expansion in where our dollars can go. So your support of this means that we can look for other resources, pass a changing tide and get back on path. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scanlon. Appreciate that. Morgan Clevenger.
Good afternoon. When I was a little kid, me and my brother, we had to take the bus to public school. We used to walk to school, but then we moved. And that bus ride was 25 cents with a 10-cent transfer. And one of the things that it gave us, we grew up in the French Quarter in the Treme, but having to ride that bus, we learned the city, we interacted with the people, we learned a lot about New Orleans from those bus rides. And today, post-Katrina, we have lost neighborhood schools, and we see our children on buses starting earlier and riding further to get to their school. And we also know that we have a tremendous amount of burden on our families. We're coming into a time where we're going to see vast Medicaid cuts, vast cuts to SNAP. Second Harvest shelves are empty. This is one program that can help families. I know we're in a budget crisis, but we seem to be able to find money for a lot of things. This is one program that needs to be supported. And our youth and families are really needing this. So thank you. Please support it.
Thank you for your comments. and Reverend Lisa Williamson.
Good morning, Council. And a big shout out to Cafe Reconcile, big shout out to the Net, and a big shout out to RIDE for putting all of these things together for our youth, so important. My name is Reverend Lisa Williamson. I'm a lifelong New Orleanian, a veteran, social worker, faith and community leader. I strongly support continuing access to free public transportation for our young people. When we talk about transportation for our youth, we're really talking about access to opportunity. A young person may have opportunity for a job, but they have to get there. They may want to participate in an after-school program, attend college or a vocational training, to go to the library, get to a medical appointment, participate in recreation, or simply become more engaged in their community, but they have to get there. For some families, transportation costs may seem small individually, but those costs add up. And for young persons without reliable transportation, that can become another barrier between an opportunity that could change the direction of their lives. We've already invested in our young people through the Opportunity Pass, where more than 11,000 young people have enrolled in this program. I encourage the City Council to look seriously at how we can sustain this investment. Because when we give young people safe and reliable mobility, we're not simply giving them a ride, we're giving them access to education, to employment, to health, recreation, community, and opportunity. And that's the investment in the future of New Orleans that we want to have for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your passion. I appreciate everyone who came out today, the representatives of RIDE for the presentation, representatives of the various organizations that support our youth who recognize the value of this particular program. I want to thank the New Orleans City Council, the previous council, for providing the financial support. And to the mayor's people who might be listening, the mayor was a strong proponent as a member of as the chair of transportation. The mayor and I discussed this program, and the mayor was strongly supportive of the Opportunity Pass program, and I know she still is. So this resolution that we bring before our body as a committee, then to be brought before the general body, just expresses strong support for the Opportunity Pass program, expresses a desire to have it made permanent. Of course, it doesn't address financial issues that we can't at this time control, but I know that as a council where there's the will, there's a way, we'll find a way to support this important program if we approve this resolution. So, members, I'm going to move for approval of Resolution R-26-355. Is there a second? Seconded by our Council Vice President Matthew Willard. Any comment? All in favor? Aye. No opposition. So resolution number R-26-356 is approved by this committee and will go before the council. Once again, I want to just start off by thanking everyone for coming out today and thanking RIDE for promoting this program, getting the word out to our young people. That's how you get 10,000 participants. You get the word out to them, and recognizing the value of this program relative to building confidence in our youth and enhancing the quality of life in our city. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to potentially seeing someone on the day of the council if you wish to take out a card and say something for a minute or so. Absolutely. But I'm feeling comfortable with 4 members present who voted on it today that it will pass on the day of the council meeting. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Item number 4 is a presentation and a discussion on e-bike safety. It's important as they come forward to recognize that an e-bike is not a toy, and an e-bike has some risks that don't exist when you're actually driving a car. We must take very seriously the use of e-bikes, recognize the speed, and recognize the danger that they pose to users and to pedestrians and others. So that is why this important item is on the agenda. There are some sobering statistics that we need to address by lowering those fatality statistics and injury statistics. So thank you all for being with us today. We have with us today Jennifer Ruley, Mobility and Safety Division Manager, Department of Public Works. We have Jeannie Donovan, Director of Public Health and Policy, New Orleans Health Department, and William Johnson, the Injury Prevention Manager, New Orleans Health Department.
Captain Mishi was unable to make it.
Okay.
NOPD stepping in. Want to introduce yourself?
And I'm sorry.
I'm Lieutenant Virginia Williams from the Special Operations Division.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Chairman Green and council members, for having us this morning. I'm Jeannie Donovan, Director of Public Health and Policy at the New Orleans Health Department. And before we dive into the details of e-bikes and e-motos, I want to just step back for a minute and provide an update on our larger Safe Streets for All action plan. Last time we were before the committee, the council and committee adopted that plan. Since we were here, the mayor has issued an executive order establishing the Safe Partnership Task Force, adopting our fatality reduction goal, which, to remind everyone, is to eliminate fatalities on New Orleans roadways in 15 years, so by 2041, and to cut those fatalities and serious injuries in half by 2031. Since we were here before the committee last time, we also applied for a $30 million federal implementation grant to turn our safety action plan into reality and to put into motion many of the projects that were included and recommended in that plan that the council and the administration adopted. The task force had its first meeting earlier this month and identified 4 priority projects that are on the screen here that we believe we can implement successfully, whether or not we get that $30 million, or before we get that $30 million grant, which we anticipate hearing back on later this year. I also wanted to just give a brief update on a positive trend that we're seeing in terms of a downward trend in terms of number of fatal crashes that we're seeing on New Orleans roadways. So you can see this is the last 5 years of data, and this year in 2026, to date, we've had 19 fatal crashes, which puts us on track to continue that downward trend through 2026, which is a really positive sign and really shows progress toward the goal that I mentioned on the last slide. However, and to really get into the meat of our presentation today, there have been recorded 4 e-bike or e-moto fatalities in the first 6 months of this year alone. So I say e-bike and e-moto because I do want to highlight one issue on our current crash reports. Because these products are evolving so rapidly, the crash reports that document what a person was riding or using at the time of the crash or a fatality doesn't currently allow for the breadth of types of vehicles that people are using. So we're actually unable to know with certainty what type of e-bike or e-vehicle that they were using. I just want to share that for clarity. I'm going to turn it over to Will, our injury prevention manager, to talk about some of the really finite details of what classifies as an e-bike as it relates to local and state law and what does not, and then we'll go from there.
Good morning. Thank you. Before we jump into the safety aspects of it, I just wanted to make sure that we're all understanding exactly what an e-bike needs to meet the criteria and what is not in the criteria of e-bike, because I think there's some things happening on the streets that wouldn't be considered an e-bike, and in the greater good, we don't want all those things to come together. So in the state of Louisiana, basically an e-bike has to meet these criteria. It has to have a seat, it has to have qualifying wheels, it has to have operating pedals, it has to have a motor that's under 750 watts, and that will give you the speed that will get you up to the maximum of all the 3.
Can you speak a little louder?
Sorry. I apologize. In Louisiana, it has to meet these qualifications. It has to have obviously a seat, qualifying wheels, fully operational pedals. It has to have an electric motor that's up to 750 watts, which gives you the speed to be within the e-bike realm. And it also has to be recognized in one of these e-bike classes. Basically, there's 3 classes of e-bikes, 1, 2, and 3. The first class obviously is going to be up to 20 miles an hour. Often the classes have to do with the speed that it gets to and the way that you can operate the speed. So class 1 provides assistance when the rider is pedaling, and the assistance stops at 20 miles an hour, so it can never max out over that. Class 2 is going to have a throttle and a rider pedaling. That will also get you up to 20 miles an hour. And then class 3 is going to be pedal assist only, and that will get you up to 28 miles an hour. Those are the only 3 classes of e-bikes. We understand that there's other things that are on the road that go over 28 miles an hour, but as Jeannie had said, those are going to be what's considered like an electric moto or electric motorcycle. There is some vaguity of terminology in that, but it's just those 3 classes that we're talking about in the city at this point. Anything else is more considered like a motorcycle or a traditional motorcycle that might have need licensing and some other things along those lines. Again, with this, it basically tells the difference that I've covered. Sorry. As mentioned before, e-bikes are a specific thing, and we want to be very clear, because there's people out there with bad behavior and bad actors that may be calling these things e-bikes, but it's these things that we want to talk to today. Other than that, I could go into the current policies and policies for state and local. Currently, the state policy is all e-bikes are basically treated as normal bicycles. They follow all the same restrictions and abilities to be licensed and enforced on. While e-bikes have traditionally been our traditional bikes, there are a few things that we wanted to point out as far as safety and as far as policy. All bicycles, whether they're e-bikes or normal traditional bikes, for children under the age of either 14 or 16, helmets are required. And then Class 3 e-bikes, while adults do not have to, or everybody on a Class 3 bike actually has to wear a helmet, and that needs to be enforced. As far as the current local policy, we basically follow the state guidelines, although e-bikes here in the city, our ordinances haven't been updated since 2019, so there is a little bit of gap between what we see at the state level and what we see locally, and it has a lot to do with Class 2, because that is a new class that has come on since 2019. As a result, it just gives us some gaps, and we would hope that some of the policy things that we look at in the future would sort of equalize us up with the state, and so we're all on the same page to get rid of these gaps.
I'll just interrupt you for a second and just to say, then tell us what we need to do. I'll be glad to introduce the resolution, but I mean, just it's something that you all are in that space, as they say so often, that you know that we need to update, so just let me know. We'll put something on the next agenda to council in terms of introduction.
And I think we're in the opening the conversation with these discussions. I don't think we have specific things that we're going to talk to at this point.
Yeah, we're going to touch on that today, but it's a complicated field that involves coordinating with enforcement, making sure that we're on the same page about what's allowed, what's not allowed, where it's allowed, where it's not allowed, who's allowed to ride, who's not allowed, and making sure that we are on the same page as city departments, but also that we educate riders and retailers about what's allowed and what's not allowed, because a lot of times people are being sold vehicles, e-vehicles, that they may think is a Class 1, 2, or 3 e-bike, but is not actually, but actually goes much faster than what Class 1, 2, or 3 e-bike is allowed to go. And so that's the kind of evolving landscape of what's on the market that the policy needs to catch up to, but we need to make sure that we all agree on where, it's going to be a conversation about where certain types are allowed, where they're not, who can ride them, who can't.
Okay.
I want to talk about,
Councilmember Green, may I jump in here?
Absolutely.
Please.
I've had at least, e-bikes are one thing, but as we're looking at e-bikes, we should also be looking at scooters. I've had at least 2 grown adult men that I know fall off of a scooter and break something. So again, as we're taking a look at the e-bike rules, I think we need to take a look at our scooter rules as well.
Okay, point taken. And we'll definitely, when we dig deeper into the data, we'll include scooters and some of the other electronic devices that are out on our streets. Really lastly, what I'll touch on is we don't want to demonize e-bikes, and we don't want to over-regulate them, because we realize that e-bikes are something that a lot of people in the city, and we talked about the pedicabs and people getting to their jobs and to school. It's something that's going to be very useful in the city, it allows people mobility. So we don't want to go down that road, but we do want to make something safe and, for everybody on the roadway. In that vein, and I know most of you are probably aware, there's two major grants that the city has currently. One of them is an e-bike rebate program that's going to be rolling out in later September. And we plan on giving 3,000 rebates out to people in the city to basically go into local bike stores, and they'll either get $1,200 or $600 based on income verification to put down on a new e-bike to make their lives better, and they'll be able to get safety equipment along with that. We think this is going to be a benefit for everybody in the city because health is not just being healthy, but it's having a productive life, and I think that's going to affect people's lives greatly. The other thing that the city is backing through a federal EPA grant is the Blue Bike expansion, and I think everybody's aware of the Blue Bikes here in the city. And we are in partnership with Blue Bikes, and a lot of people that probably where we're talking today work in that realm, to basically they're going to increase the number of Blue Bikes that are in population to about 2,000, hopefully by next Mardi Gras. And they have a plan working with DPW and Jennifer Ruley to actually make more hubs around the city. So there's going to be neighborhoods that currently don't have access to them, but the plan is to spread it across the city and give people more opportunity to get the places that they need to go.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Green, may I ask a question? The grants that we're giving out as a city, are we tying any of those grants to specific training on how to use an e-bike? Has that been a thought?
Yeah, that is a conversation we're having. We definitely want to strike the right balance between increasing mobility and helping people purchase these vehicles, but also making sure we're doing it safely. So we're actively planning what sort of safety requirements and training are associated with being able to get that voucher.
Even an online course where we do our safety, our e-training all the time.
Yeah.
If you really want to get into it and you're paying attention to it, you can do that if you just want to click through it. But I do think that any city grant, if we're trying to keep our streets safe, should be tied to some sort of safety education. On the Blue Bike situation, same thing. These are Class 2 bikes, according to your...
I believe they're Class 1.
They're Class 1 bikes. And I know that the Blue Bikes, at least in my neighborhoods, are just bikes themselves. There aren't any helmets available. Is that a conversation with Blue Bike about providing helmets? I have conversations with Blue Bike. We're trying to figure out a way to do that logistically because, at the hubs, it's just the bikes. So I think our plan, when we ramp up the education for the free vouchers and the expansion, is to have a side program where we can have safety classes. And if you come out, whether it's online and you get a certificate and then you come in and do like a free safety ride, similar to like the DMV where you have to do a driving test, that we would supply lights, helmets, safety gear. We do have some funding for that now, but that's something that we're reworking the grants to allow because we see that as an issue. Yeah.
Everybody that's riding an e-bike, in my mind, should have a helmet on.
I agree.
Because at 20 miles an hour versus a traditional bike at 3 or 5 miles an hour is the difference between life and death, and it can be. So, and something like a helmet can change that ratio.
Yeah, look, I get tagged all the time by Bike Uneasy and other organizations, and I myself ride bikes around the city. This is not a bike-friendly place. I mean, it just isn't. And so I think any sort of training that we can do on how to appropriately ride in traffic, how to ride on streetcar tracks, how to maintain your balance when there is a car turning into you, I think that's very important as we get these grants out and partner with organizations like Ride on Education.
And that's the take of the health department too. That's why we wanted to become involved in this, because we see the public health side of it, and we feel like the health department can insert ourselves into the education component versus just the straight up giving the vouchers. We can bring something to that table.
Alrighty.
Great. So I touched a little bit on this in response to Councilmember Green's question, but in terms of the policy changes that are in development, and we are happy to bring those to you when we've worked through the details, and would love to have you be part of those conversations as well. But we need to make sure our definitions are aligned with what's on the road and what the state has in its law. We need to clarify facility rules, where they can be, what can be on the greenway, for example, what can be in a bicycle lane, We have to have standard reporting so that, that's what I mentioned about the crash forms, so that we know when there's a crash or when someone goes to the hospital, what were they actually riding? We have to create a device test. We know that the 750 watts is the max to be considered an e-bike. And you have to have working pedals. If you're just zooming down the street at 50 miles an hour on something that looks like a bike but doesn't have operable pedals, you're not riding an e-bike, and that's not allowed on the roadways. But it's very difficult to tell. If you're a police officer, I'm sure it's very challenging to tell if that's an e-bike or not. But there are ways to work through that, and other cities are working through that, and we're studying that very closely. And then we have to require accountability. So we have to have those safety requirements as it relates to getting vouchers from the city, or even potentially for riding an e-bike at all. And so that's kind of where we're headed with policy change. And again, we look forward to working with the council on updating our ordinances accordingly. And then we, as Will mentioned, we also look forward to really communicating those policy changes very clearly to the public, to retailers, to youth, and to drivers, so that drivers are aware of how to navigate the road and share the road with e-bikes and bicycles in general. And so with that, I will turn it over to Jennifer.
Thank you. My role in this is building infrastructure out. And of course, we already have some existing infrastructure out there that is being used more and more by people on e-bikes and e-scooters. On any given day in the Lafitte Greenway, you'll see probably about half of the wheels on the Greenway are electric motor powered. So from a common sense perspective, we'd just like to reiterate to people that if you are using an electrical motor powered vehicle, that pay attention to your surroundings. Obviously, paths like the Lafitte Greenway, Norman Francis, the Levy paths, these are all mixed use spaces, so you're going to have a mix of bicyclists, pedestrians, children, people on skates, these sort of things, and they're all traveling at different speeds. So our best advice is to, if you're going to go faster than about 15 miles an hour, don't use the path, particularly during heavier times of use. And so there's no speed limit per se on paths like the Lafitte Greenway, but there are statutes on the books that require that you use a reasonable speed. So, you know, if you're zooming down a path like the Lafitte Greenway, there's a lot that you can encounter. There are people walking dogs, that sort of thing. It just doesn't, it's not smart. And we want people to be safe. And I would advise that if you're going to go fast, use a street, and you'll avoid conflict. And for the most part, people do follow that just instinct. I saw someone yesterday using a parallel street. So for the most part, we have had good behavior. And then also we have bike lanes.
Doesn't work.
We have bike lanes that obviously get a lot of use around the city, and just want to caution people that, you know, the average speed of bicyclists is somewhere around 12.5 miles an hour. So if you're traveling at a speed faster than that, be aware of slower moving vehicles, and also intersections. You could really come up on an intersection, and that is a conflict point. And so we want to make sure people are exercising common sense around their speeds. And again, there are statutes on the book that already regulate speeds on streets. But in bike lanes, you could have people coming out of cars, that sort of thing. So lots of potential for conflict. Then finally, we are building out more bike infrastructure to support people who are riding on bikes. And we're looking to build out infrastructure where people already are. So one of the projects we are working on is building out 6 miles of improved infrastructure for people bicycling in downtown New Orleans, which will result in a continuous bike lane between one end at the upriver end and the downriver end of downtown, and then connecting into neighborhoods. And this project will result in kind of the separation from moving vehicles that bicyclists need to feel safe. And it also gives more organization to people driving so that they know where to expect bicyclists on the street. In addition, it'll improve safety for pedestrians crossing the street. So many multimodal benefits. And we'll continue to update the council as more infrastructure projects come about for bike infrastructure. And then Lieutenant Williams.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi. So I was brought in here today because I do work the LHSE bicycle grant. And I started working this grant in May of this year. And since I have been working this grant, the month of May, I have had contact with 34 bicyclists, and this is the opportunity for me to actually educate the bicyclists on how to ride safely on the streets of New Orleans. June, I did 29 stops, of course, and when I do the stops, I actually give them this form. It's a DOT form that actually talk about the safety laws and how to ride bikes safely on the streets in the city of New Orleans. July, I did 30 stops. August, I went to 17 stops, and the reason why I went to 17 stops is because after speaking with the bicyclists, vehicles are a big problem for them. So if they're riding, up a one-way street on St. Claude Avenue, they ride against traffic because they want to see the vehicle, because riding the right way, people have gotten hit. Have they had people to get hit riding against traffic? Yes. They've had people to even get hit while riding in bicycle lanes. So I focused on bicycle lanes and people who park there, because I literally was sitting and watching a female riding in the bike lane, and a truck pulled in the bike lane and stopped, and she almost ran into the back of him, and she had to veer into traffic, and she was almost struck in. So I did give him a ticket, and I started giving parking tickets for bicycle lanes more frequently. I think I've written 38 so far. I had 110 bicycle stops just to educate people about how to ride safely on the streets of New Orleans. That's my main focus. Actually, the grant ends today, so unfortunately, we'll have to wait till it comes back. It doesn't stay away for a long time, but I'll still have that opportunity to go out and make sure that I educate the motorist and also the cyclist. Most times when I'm writing the parking tickets, the people will drive off, but they still get the ticket because it's mailed in. They'll mail it in. So they're not avoiding it, but the people who actually sit in the bike lanes inside of a vehicle, I do have an opportunity to get on and educate them and talk about the different laws and why it's not safe for you to park in this lane, and it's not safe for the bicyclist to safe for you to park there, because the bicyclists are not safe as well. Again, this is passionate to me because I had a special needs sister riding a bike with her, and she was struck by a vehicle when we were younger. She's fine, but again, it's passionate to me, and I do want to make sure that everyone is safe on a bicycle. And interacting with the bicyclists, really, we take a lot of time, and they really didn't understand and know that they had bicycle laws like that. They could actually get a ticket for riding on a sidewalk or riding up a one-way street, and they had to realize that the bikes are a vehicle as well, and have to abide by actually all the laws, the stop signs, the red lights. They have to abide by all traffic signals. So.
Thank you for your presentation. So if someone sees someone parked in a bike lane, they can simply go to 311 and file a complaint, call 311 then, or how would you prefer that information get to you so that in real time they can be issued a citation?
So parking just actually came under NOPD, which was a great thing, I'm gonna be honest with you, and they gave me a parking ticket book, and that was the greatest thing they could have given me to help with, if a ticket meter is not in the area. We are still working through parking, how to deal with those different issues and questions. Captain Michoud is actually working with me with that, and hopefully I'll have that information for you. But right now, I would say call the police. And I'm always on call. Not that I'm gonna get out and come and write a parking ticket, but we could actually issue some parking tickets to the district so they could actually start writing parking tickets as well, if it's after hours for parking. So, but they have to be educated on how to write a parking ticket because it will be thrown out immediately if it's not filled out right. So I've had the class with some of the parking attendants, and they have been really good with educating us on how to write parking tickets. So, and it's not a cheap ticket at all. I'll tell you that. It starts at $300 for a parking lane, blocking a parking lane. So we've had some issues in different areas, and I am actually monitoring AP Churro, where St. Augustine, I know we probably have some St. Augustine people here. I have not written, but we've gotten with Lieutenant Barnes has gotten with, I guess the president of the school, because what they do is they actually, I had some photos, they actually park inside of the parking bike lane. And I've seen people ride through there on bicycles, and they had to veer off in traffic. And if you know about AP Churro, the bike lanes is on the left-hand side of the street and not on the right-hand side. So you have to go inside the little cones that stick out, and they actually park in there until they wait, and while they're waiting for their kids to get out of school. But that's not safe for the bicyclists. It's not.
They're also running over the bollards.
Yes,
so the bollards
absolutely. They're running over them. And
right, at the end of the day.
The biggest issue we had was on St. Claude and Elysian Fields, right by Robert's. They removed the cones out of the street and threw them on the neutral ground. Mm-hmm. So they don't care about it, but I will sit there and make sure they get a ticket for it if they park there.
Yes, well, thank you very much. It's important for the public to recognize that it's never allowable to park in a bike lane.
You cannot park in a bike lane.
Tickets are issued and they have to be paid, but the best thing is to go around the corner and just do something other than park in the bike lane.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
Again, people have been hit, and some people have been killed if they see, and I always remind them of the white bikes that's attached to the poles. This is in remembrance of somebody who actually was killed on a bike.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris?
Yeah, I have some locations for you, specifically Chick-fil-A. Literally, we could put a parking attendant out there and make so much money for the city because people double park all the time. So at $300 a hit, literally it's worth putting 2 or 3 parking attendants out there. They double park to go run into Chick-fil-A, get their meals, and then they block the bike lane. And so many times there are bikers who have to go around those cars in order to try to go around safely. People also open their doors into the bike lanes as they're trying to get their Chick-fil-A. So literally we could station somebody out there and that would be awesome.
And that's in front of Loyola. I mean, that's on Loyola.
It's right here, Loyola, yeah. I mean, if I had a ticket book, I'd stand out there and write tickets.
So what I can do is bring that information back to Captain Mishu, because if I'm not mistaken, that's not a bike lane. They double park there.
It's a bike lane.
Okay,
yeah, it's
good.
a bike lane. And so that brings me to my second point. And Jennifer, you brought up a couple things. And obviously I don't want to extend this conversation too much, but I do think that signage is important. The city lacks a lot of signage. I think if somebody knew that if you park in a bike lane and you're going to get a $300 ticket, you're not going to park there. And so again, putting a sign at the Chick-fil-A, park here, $300, I think that would deter people because they don't know that's how much a ticket is. On the issue of e-bikes that are over in excess of speed, is there any signage that we could put up on the greenway that says no e-bikes or no whatever e-bikes that exceed whatever speed?
We do have signs that say no motorized vehicles. And those were put up in 2015 when the Greenway was built, which was long before the evolution of e-bikes. I do believe that there is a restriction on Class 3 e-bikes on paths.
Correct.
Right, under city code. There, I guess the question is like, we can look into it. And to figure out how would be best to, so we can't put like too much language on a sign, but we could also do outreach and get that, get more information out there on the paths.
Maybe take a look at what other cities do. I think a lot of people who have e-bikes don't think of them as motorized vehicles. They think of them as bikes that are e-bikes, right? So I think saying no motorized vehicle to me would be like no golf carts, no whatever. So you're not associating it with e-bikes.
You're thinking of cars and motorcycles. Yeah, I agree. So we'll take a look at some examples from other other places.
Thank you.
Good suggestion.
Thank you all for your presentations, and I do have a couple of comment cards. All right, going in order that they were received. Lauren Nagel.
Good afternoon, Council. Nice to be here. My name is Lauren Nagel. I am Bike Easy's Education Programs Manager. For those who don't know, and I know you're all familiar with Bike Easy, but Bike Easy has been New Orleans' bicycle nonprofit for over 23 years, and our mission is to make bicycling easy, safe, and fun for everyone in Greater New Orleans. I am pleased to see a diverse city, to see diverse city agencies and nonprofits like Bike Easy working together to prioritize e-bike safety as ridership continues to grow. We know that there is tremendous benefits that e-bikes provide, including access to jobs, health benefits, and their contribution to the city's climate goals. We also know there's a huge need for education around how to be safe riding on the road, what is and what is not an e-bike, and state and local laws. This is why I, with Bike Easy, have created a smart e-biking class that's being offered on Saturday, September 26th. This class can be attended in person or on Zoom, and is in partnership with Blue Bikes, New Orleans Community e-Bike Share. Those who sign up in person will get free helmets and reflective gear and have the chance to try out riding a Class 1 e-bike. So I invite you all personally to join this class or share it with anyone you know who is interested in purchasing an e-bike or already rides one. You can sign up at bikeeasy.org/events, and Bike Easy is looking forward to continuing to be a part of this conversation. Thank you so much.
If you have a flyer, could you share that with our offices so that we can put it on our social medias?
Yes, and would it be okay to leave one in the front for anybody?
Yeah, but if we can get a digital copy, we can share it from our networks.
Okay, perfect. I'll send.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Morgan Clevenger.
Good afternoon. Really excited to see the progress we're having here. Public safety on our streets is always a public health issue. As First District Police Community Advisory Board, we did a deep dive with the community for the last 2 years on street safety, motorist safety, pedestrian safety, and bicycle safety, because we had so many people being hit, bicyclists being hit, motorists, major crashes on Gentilly and Broad, really unbelievable. But I want to give a big thank you to Captain Michaud and his team, because they have been working with us for those 2 years, and we have seen a reduction, particularly in the burnout and the motorcycle racing that was happening at St. Bernard and Broad, and all the way up to Broad and Esplanade and Bayou Road, and on Gentilly. Also want to quickly say that it's important that we also look at the low-hanging fruit basic services that are in our environment, and that includes, right now we have a terrible situation on Broad where the grass is way overgrown, the tree branches are hitting the ground, blocking visibility for everyone. Parking in bike lanes is outrageous. It is the most unsafe thing. 1846 Gentilly, we have been reporting on this for almost 4 years now, and we still cannot get that solved. The blocking intersections and sidewalks, parking. Now, we're glad to see parking is under the police, and we hope to see you guys out there writing those tickets. Real quick, e-bikes, what about the proliferation of the non-street legal and the DIY? We see a lot of minors on those bikes, and it's so unsafe. And last thing, is there a bicycle license? Can we tie licensing to education for e-bikes?
Thank you for your comments. I do want to thank you for acknowledging the work of the New Orleans Police Department, because it's a very difficult challenge for them to stop, especially some of these young people who have decided that they're going to do things no matter they know the law or not. These people who, when you see black circles on a street, they didn't do it in front of the police. They're just irresponsible, especially young, but I'll just say irresponsible people who don't understand that they themselves are in danger when they're doing it, and the people around them in houses and who are walking are doing it. When you see someone on Claiborne Avenue doing a donut, which is a state thoroughfare, I might add, but when you see them doing that, they are simply irresponsible. They're trying to get views and likes, and the New Orleans Police Department has its hands full, but you're all right. The numbers of people who are doing that, I see it. I drive around on Sundays to look for certain things, especially because that's when they do it. The NOPD is doing a fine job, but I just want to appeal to the guys who are doing those things. I mean, in general, our presentations today are about being common sense and also focusing on safety. It's unsafe to park in bike lanes because you force the bikes to go out into the streets. It's unsafe to do donuts on a street. It's unsafe to do those kind of things that you just know can cause injury. A lot of these things can be addressed by people just using common sense and being a little bit unselfish, because those are selfish people too who are doing those acts. Reverend Lisa Williamson.
I'm at 5931 Congress Drive. But listen, I've been riding bikes in the city of New Orleans all my life from about 6 or 7 years old, so bike riding is everything. I retired in 2017 and came back home to do some more work and serving, and I've been riding since 2019. I would get up and ride NOLA on Tuesday evenings. Sometimes I hang out with Bike Easy. I got the email from Bike Easy on the other day. I am a part of their partnership with safety for bicycles, right? So today I just wanted to put my 2 cents on how important this is for our city, and particularly for me as an individual. I returned to bike riding in 2019, but cycling has been a part of my life forever. Today, however, riding in New Orleans does not always feel safe. Drivers, bicyclists, pedestrians must be able to share our streets without anyone being fearing for their lives. That's why the work of the Bike Easy is important, and bicycle education, protected bike lanes, clearly marked crossings, proper lighting, and enforcement of the laws can help prevent serious injuries and also save lives. So I just wanted to come here and support bike safety. I thank the New Orleans Police Department and everybody else who's been a part of this and keeping us safe. Thank you for writing those tickets for people who park in the bike lane. And yes, I've had to dot out in the street many times riding down the bike lane on Esplanade by the schools where the parents want to park in the bike lane to drive their kids off and park their kids to school, but not in the bike lane where I had to roll out in the street. So thank you for doing that and being an advocate for bike safety, NOPD and everybody else involved, Bike Easy, and always glad to be part of something that's really going to help our city to be safe. Thanks. Thank
you for being here, and thank you for your comment. Members, do we have any comment from the dais? Thank you very much for your presentations today. Again, we're emphasizing and we're moving in the right direction in many respects relative to public safety. Fatalities are down, but we want there to be a point where we have no fatalities, and that's only going to happen if we continue to have discussion and take action. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have one last item on the agenda, members, and I know that we have another meeting, but this committee meets quarterly for a reason, so that we have long meetings, but then it's done. At the end of the day, we have one other presentation that's at the request of the Moreno administration, and it's on the project status and update connecting New Orleans East.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? My name is Andrew Logan. I do communications and community outreach for the safety and mobility team.
My name is Virginia Brisley. I'm the project manager for this project with the Public Works Department, Mobility and Safety Division.
And so today we just wanted to come before you to provide an update on DPW 780, which is connecting New Orleans East. So today we'll talk about the project background, the goals, key findings, and next steps. Okay, so Connecting New Orleans East is a project that we are doing from a grant from the Federal Department of Transportation. So in, I believe it was 2024, 2023, the city was awarded $62 million to do a connectivity project along the I-10 service roads in New Orleans East. Unfortunately, last year, 95% of that money was rescinded. So it left us with $2.2 million for a preliminary design phase and a community engagement process.
Can you clarify rescinded by whom? So that the
federal government.
The federal government.
Yes.
Which is one of the reasons that we have concerns relative to our local budgeting, because we've lost so many millions of dollars.
Right. It was from the Big Beautiful Bill. So that rescinded a bunch of the funding from the project.
Thank you.
The project specifically was aimed to address a longstanding issue on the state road, the I-10 service road. As you can see in the graphic that's on this slide, a person is walking in the road because there are no current sidewalks or areas for people biking to safely bike off of the road. And so this project was intended to correct a longstanding deficiency on the state road, and the money was intended to construct shared use paths for 11 miles along and across the I-10 service roads.
Thank you. So our engagement activities were really important in this project. We wanted to really go into the community and ask them what were their key priorities for addressing safety concerns along the I-10 service road. So they started in January 2026, and it included several meetings with stakeholders and then 2 larger public meetings. And so as Virginia said, the project aims to create connected paths along the I-10 service roads across the existing interchanges from Morrison Road to the Vincent Canal. And so design includes lighting for the roadway and paths. So like I said, it was really important for us to go to the community. We didn't want to just come into the community and say, hey, this is what we're doing. We really wanted to get a very robust and common consensus on what the community viewed as priorities and how we can address them through this project. So we had 4 stakeholder meetings starting in February and ending in May of 2026. And then we had 2 larger public meetings, which we had our first one in March. And so that meeting was to really reintroduce the project back to the community. So we wanted to obtain community input. We also distributed a public survey. That survey was also sent out in various ways. We were at coffee shops in New Orleans East. We were at fish fries in New Orleans East. We went to bus stops. We went to schools. We went to the apartment complexes along the I-10 service road and distributed the survey to the residents. And then at public meeting number 2, we were able to really present project prioritization framework and implementation concepts. So basically what we heard from public meeting number 1 in the community survey, we inputted that into public meeting number 2.
So as Andrew mentioned, we wanted a very robust engagement strategy because we had a significant amount of money taken away from the project for construction funds. So in order to have a phasing of priorities, we wanted to hear from the community where and how to implement safety improvements and other features for the service road that would really meet the needs of what the community and what stakeholders want to see for the future of the corridor.
So we're going to talk about the key findings. So like we keep saying, we really wanted a very robust engagement process to really gain the most common consensus that we can from the community based on their needs. And so with our community participation, we had 25 stakeholders who participated in those 4 stakeholder meetings. And the stakeholders really included residents who live in New Orleans East, subdivision leaders from New Orleans East, business owners from New Orleans East, and members of ENONAC, which is and New Orleans East Matters. And so I mentioned the survey earlier. So like I said, we were on the ground. We went to schools, fish fries, churches, and from that we were able to gain 300 survey responses. And so the community was surveyed between March and April of 2026, and we got 300 responses. And then across our 2 public meetings, we had 150 people attend those meetings. So very well interest from the community during both meetings, side conversations. If members of the community called or emailed our office, we would respond back, have a conversation. We provided updates to the community throughout the process, and also really kept a close eye with the stakeholders as well. So like I said, we wanted to build a prioritization phasing segment. And so from the community survey, from the community input, we got this map here. And so this map really shows the entire length of the project, and the colors determine whether or not that was seen as a priority area for the residents. So as you can see, a top priority area is Crowder Boulevard and the interconnectors that get you to that interchange. That deep purple means that that is a high priority based on community input. And then another high priority area is Bullard Avenue. So again, these 2 areas were really seen as the top priority for the need to address safety concerns along the I-10 service road.
I do want to mention that Morrison Road also, the Morrison Road interchange rose to the top in terms of public input. And what we discovered and what we uncovered with data collection and the design effort is that really that state interchange needs further investigation by DOTD before we feel the Department of Public Works feels comfortable introducing pedestrian crossings and pedestrian facilities to navigate that interchange, because as you probably know, Councilmember Green, that is an exit and entrance ramp for the I-10, and people come off of and onto those ramps in high speeds, and they're coming onto a city road. It's state-owned in that portion. However, it is 35 miles an hour, but folks are coming off of the interstate very fast. And so before we feel comfortable proposing pedestrian facilities in that location, further improvements for the way that interchange works with cars needs to happen at the state level.
The challenge with that intersection is that they're also coming off of a bridge. I mean, basically, it's always going to be, unless you do a lot of lighting, a lot of signage, and eventually some issuance of certificate. I mean, look, I understand it, very honestly, because all you have to do is see there are people coming off the bridge. They go so fast. They even get to the I-10 service road, and they have to put a foot on the brake because they're going too fast.
Exactly.
You know.
We did have DOTD representatives on site with us at that interchange to observe behaviors, and they are aware of the challenges, and they are willing to look into that area.
Okay, so from our engagement process, and something that I forgot to mention, a part of our engagement process, we did a community walking audit, and we had members of New Orleans East come out with us. We had members of the mayor's administration, from the Office of Economic Development to Renee Laparoulerie, and like she said, members from the state as well. We conducted a walking audit, and so we really kind of walked to be on the ground at the interchanges to really see what needs needed to be addressed in those areas as far as safety is concerned. So from all of our public meetings, all of our community engagement, we've come here. And so as you see on the left, this is the current condition of the North Service Road from Mayo to Crowder Boulevard. So on the left, you see there's no facility for people to be able to be connected throughout New Orleans East. There's no lighting, there's no landscaping, there's nothing. And even in some areas along the service road, you can see where the ground has been walked on so much to where the grass is dead, or you just see dirt, and it just shows the need. It just shows that people do utilize the service road on foot or biking even. And so on the left, we have what we're proposing, which is a shared use path, lighting, and landscaping. And so here, back on the North Service Road at Bullard Avenue to Shadow Lawn Drive, currently there is no way for people to get across the canal without walking directly into traffic to be able to get across the canal. So on the right, what we're proposing is a canal crossing bridge, which would facilitate that safe crossing to avoiding people having to go directly into traffic to get across. And so here we are proposing something that's very similar to Reed Boulevard. So if you go to Reed today, the sidewalks that have been constructed, the pedestrian signals that have been installed, the striping, things of that nature is what we're proposing at Bullard, and also they have it at Crowder's semi, but not to the full build out like Reed. And so what it is basically is creating a path for people to get across where the cars are exiting, and then get under the bridge to get to the other side of Crowder. So a safe crossing, sidewalks, striping, things of that nature.
At the current condition, there's no sidewalk access at Bullard.
And then here we wanted to show the lighting. So from our community engagement, lighting was a huge thing. And so here currently at nighttime, there's no lighting, it's very dark, can be very unsafe. So on the right, what we're proposing is, again, the shared use path, but this rendering really shows what it would look like at nighttime. So, during the process, people were saying, well, do the interstate lights light the service road? And they do not. And so currently at nighttime, the service road is dark, there's no lighting. And so what we're proposing is to add lighting into the service road.
Part of the study was to ensure that the light didn't trespass onto the properties. So that was an emphasis also, to make certain that it was lighting the roadway and not necessarily creating light pollution for the neighbors and the residents along the service road.
Okay, so now we can get down to funding. So construction costs for all features is $23.8 million. And that includes the 11 miles of shared use paths, lighting for the entire corridor, landscaping, and the canal crossings. Something that Virginia kind of touched on earlier is phasing. And we really want to take the approach of a phased approach to build the project out. We understand that $23 million is a lot of money, but we do want to continue the momentum in the community and let them know and show them physically that we are trying to produce an improvement from what they took their time out to come and tell us. So shared use paths would cost $12.3 million. Lighting for the corridor is $5 million. Landscaping, which includes trees and sodding, is $2.5 million. And then $600,000 for each canal crossing, and there would be 6 of them.
And so this demonstrates the cost by feature. We had our consultant also break it down by the segments that we saw on the maps. So we have figures for each of the segments, and they're in or around the 1.5 to 1.75 million per segment that was identified. And so that comes back to the phasing approach and to the buy-in from the community as to where we should prioritize funding. And so we're really leaning on that information, that partnership that we have we've tried to honor and grow with the stakeholders and neighbors in New Orleans East.
And so next steps, Virginia.
Yeah, as we mentioned, we kicked off the contract in January of this year, and we've gone through the engagement process and using the feedback from the community. We are in the preliminary design phase right now. As we mentioned, our grant funding is for preliminary design and the engagement. So we're here now in large part because we, Department of Public Works, are looking to secure funding for phasing out these improvements. We have gotten a commitment from the Regional Planning Commission to add a phase one project to the TIP, and that money is scheduled for 2030 in the order of $5 million from the federal government, which would be a 1.25 cost share match from the city, so a $6.25 million investment for a phase one project. And we have all these broken down in that way, but we would have to go into final design and permitting for that phase one, and obviously the construction with that funding in mind. But we are also looking to be creative with the type of features that we do have. We do know that lighting is a huge priority for the residents of New Orleans East, and we are looking to leverage the bond funding that we do have in ways that would make the most sense and put the biggest impact for the near term, because we've had such an enthusiastic response to this project. We want to continue the momentum. We want to build on that participation and keep folks engaged so that they can see that the city receives the information and then works to put it in action. That should be the end.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you very much, Virginia. We appreciate the presentations. It's good to know that since January, there's been this much public input into the process, the 300 responses, the number of people who've shown up. What is the regrettable side is that the federal government has said an important project like this, which is designed to enhance public safety, along, interestingly enough, federally created roadways, is not worthy of providing the sort of money that is easily provided in one day when they do some of the incredible things that are done on on other levels. $23 million is not that much. So I hope that the funding will be restored for this important project. And I do want to say that the public input is appreciated. It's great to see a photo of a meeting where there is a standing room only crowd or a good number of people. And that's how you get some of these ideas. You hear from the people, and public input does make a difference. So thank you all very much. Looking forward to the next presentation, and maybe the next presentation suggests that we've identified some monies. I hope that the state of Louisiana can help too. I don't want to get too political, but I also represent a district where the state of Louisiana spent $17 million in 3 months on a transition center, so that 2 months, so that the Super Bowl, could look a little bit better downtown. And I understand the value of both, but the bottom line is that I think that we have the resources to do it, especially on a state level with our $47 billion state budget. I hope it can be found, because this not only enhances the appearance, but it enhances safety along an important thoroughfare. So thank you for your work. Members, do we have any comments? Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you maybe again in November at our next quarterly meeting where we have a little bit of an update. There might be something on money. All right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
your time.
Have a good one.
With no other items on the agenda, I want to thank members of the council. We meet quarterly, so our meeting is always going to be a little bit longer, but today we heard so much about public safety and some good news relative to enhancements in public safety. So with that, I'll entertain a motion. Councilmember Willett moves, seconded by Councilmember Harris. This meeting is now adjourned with no objections, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in 50 minutes.
50 minutes. Everyone get this
All right. Very good. Everything was good. Glad to see the numbers